two lawyers in the first instance, and indeed maybe other people will call in on the phone, is really the NBA president. Last week it was Mr. Olumide Akpata. He was reporting to an NBA NEC executive committee meeting at the quarterly meeting in Oyo, Akwa Ibom State, and he had expressed in quite colorful language his disappointment with the whole procedure. By the way, he was new to that particular sitting as a result of his office. He's included in there. So it's like this was his first practical hands-on session, and he was narrating his disappointment to his colleagues because he said the procedure was not in his mind that would bring about the most effective and competent benches. He said, in fact, that the whole affair was little more than an old boys meeting where people were just being shunted along. Now, this is quite heavy because it seems to me that the NBA president, he became a whistleblower, so to speak, in speaking up. But I was surprised. Were you surprised, Liberals? Let me first of all, were you surprised that the NBA president came up with this position that was his impression while performing his duties, that it was a joke, almost. He didn't quite use the word joke. But if you say it was little more than an old boys meeting, then what else is it? Wait, first of all, to answer the question, I'm going to ask it of Mr. Logun as well. Were you surprised?
I would have been surprised if Olumide Akpata didn't say that.
Oh, really?
Yes, I would have been surprised that if he hadn't said that.
Jide Logun, were you surprised when you heard the news that... How about you? Were you surprised?
Not at all. Coming from the judiciary, so to say, from lawyers, I wasn't surprised. Lawyers have been known to express their minds. Perhaps maybe what should be of concern may be that Akpata most likely was expressing himself out of reflex and never thought it would come to the public domain. But it has come to the public domain, and I believe that his concern is a reflection of concerns of many others, not just within the judiciary, but in the nation generally. And of course, we are quick to also try and launder these expressions. But by and large, any group or any person calling for due diligence and thorough background checks and recruitment process must be commended, because as you lay the foundation, you build on it. If the foundation is strong, you come up with a strong building. If the foundation is faulty, then you have to manage faulty symptoms all through. For me, there is nothing out of the ordinary from what he has demanded for thoroughness in the recruitment process.
Sure, I'm going to come back to you. Now, Liberals, these officers, how does one put it, these candidates that people will be deciding upon at the meeting, such as Mr. Akpata attended, they're provided, that list of people, those candidates are provided by the NJC.
Yes, they are recommended.
They are thank you. I even like the word better. Never mind presented. They are recommended by NJC.
And so at that screening, what Akpata is saying, we're not talking about customary court judges here. We're not talking about magistrate courts. We're not even talking about the high courts. We're talking about the Court of Appeal. These are judges that will review whatever judgment that is coming from the high court. So the presumption is that they should, be above board, not just above board. They should, in terms of the knowledge, the depth knowledge of the law, they should be higher than those at the lower courts. And so what he is saying is the process ought to be more rigorous and thorough than just this pat on the back, 5 minutes questions for one person.
Because he as a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, wasn't even satisfied with the way some of them responded to questions put to them.
You know why?
And I'm going back to the word that you used, recommendations of the NJC. How would such people be recommended?
Let's bring it. That's why he's complaining. And that's why my colleague Mologu is complaining. That's why I'm complaining. That's why so many other, including senior advocates in some cases, have had cause to complain. And that is why even the layman on the street in some cases, we read judgments coming from a superior court and they say, no, this can't be it. And so, if we say the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, we need, like my late Professor Iboni would say, we need people whose ideas are up in the heavens, who, when they talk, you will see wisdom and law flowing. And that's why people still say,
sir, those are the kind of people, those words you've just
yes.
Those are the kind of people NJC should be recommending. This is where there's a problem.
That is why it is good that this complaint is coming from the NBA president. That the president of the NBA is the one raising this alarm. And if liberals had raised it, they will say he's a rabble-rouser. Don't mind him. He's always in one TV program or the other, so don't mind him. And then, to his face, they said, don't worry, they will learn on the job. How do you learn? It's like...
No, that was... I enjoyed that article. That was some people who heard him expressing his misgivings. Say, calm down.
Even at that...
These people learn on the job.
Even he said at that meeting, at that screening, that some people told him that they will learn on the job.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like you're interviewing a candidate to employ in your law firm. What he's saying impliedly is that some of the questions are not even the kind of question that you put to a year one student or a young, fresh lawyer that you are employing.
Yes.
So,
and they didn't do well. And they didn't do well in their responses.
And that's why, what's the name of this judge that was recommended by the president to the International Court of Justice? You heard the recommendation that came out from there.
Yeah.
And it was a disgrace, not just to lawyers, but to the entire country.
Okay, let me go back to Jide. So what does this potentially portend, if you will, Jide, for the dispensation of justice, for the confidence? Liberals refer to the law being the last resort of ordinary people, that fine, I will pursue this thing to the end, and once the law says this, I will have to live with it. Now, what does this situation portend where about to be judges are reportedly not able to answer quite simple questions satisfactorily, allegedly?
You know, the quality of justice you get will be determined by the quality of the justice officials that we administer the justice. And we were taught in law school and in sacrosanct in law that justice should not only be done, but clearly seen to have been done. And that calls for diligence. You know, that calls for a very high standard of engaging the details, paying attention to the position of the law, position of equity, ensuring that we do not have miscarriage of justice. And it is only when we are able to put this on the table that people can trust the processes and trust the decisions that come out of the law courts. And like my colleague brilliantly mentioned, we are not talking of the High Court, we are talking of Court of Appeal. So you expect that those who are dissatisfied with how it went in the High Court will proceed to the Court of Appeal. So you expect that they will look forward to a more rigorous and thorough attention paid to the facts and laws to ensure that we don't have miscarriage of justice. And it's very important. And again, I think this is not just what the president of NBA complained about in Judiciary. If you have monitored some of the recruitment processes of some ministers and some people that are appointed to agencies and require the nomination, the confirmation rather, of the National Assembly, for quite a number of them, they just laugh over it. Oh, take a bow. We don't even have any question for you. And so when you now begin to see the results that are coming from these persons in office, then you wonder why our country is where it is.
Okay. You know, Jide, I beg your pardon. I got to interrupt you, Jide. I wanted to bring it back to studio. I'll come back to you. Sorry for interrupting you. And that place Jide reached there is quite frankly the one that bothers me the most, because it seems that going by the situation, by what we have now, what Jide was saying, we also experience, have come to know about in other aspects of our national life, where people are getting into positions of high responsibility, not necessarily having the competency to do so, but because they are well connected, whatever their own old boy network is, it has thrown them forward. I don't know, were we being naive to think that no way the law will be like that? I mean, it's okay for those those kind of situations, but the law, where every man is ultimately, this is your final bus stop, know how the lawyerly people can allow it.
We were just being naive.
We were just being naive.
Yes, we were being naive.
So all sorts of people get onto the bench.
Yes, because you can't insulate the bench from the shenanigans going on, the political shenanigans going on.
Yeah, but that's why we have an NJC.
A situation where at the end of the day, it is the politicians, the NJC recommends. And some of the members of the NJC, you begin to ask, how did they even become judges in the first place? So if we take it back, you backpedal a little bit, you find out how did they, this was the same process that saw them. That's why we keep saying, oh, the days of Oputa GSC, the Ogundares, you know, and all of that are gone. And how did these people become judges? Some through quota, some recommendation. Last time I put out a tweet and I said, in Nigeria, in other successful societies, education is celebrated. And when a society celebrates education, that society will go far. But a society that celebrates recommendations and sycophancy, there is no way such a society will go far. And when you see that play out in the political sphere, you see it play out even in education, and you think that the judiciary will be insulated, before you know it, it will gradually creep into it. And if we all maintain a conspiracy of silence because we are ministers in the temple of justice, we should see every evil, hear every evil, but speak no evil. Before we know it, you'll find out that sometimes you will sit down, even as a senior lawyer, and the man who is to preside over your case as a judge, you are even questioning his capacity, whether he was even called to the bar. You know, that is the day you realize that our silence had destroyed the only institution that we have. And that's why I commend Olumide Akpata. Yes, he was reporting to NEC, but then if the legal profession, if the MBA cannot fix the legal profession, no other person will. You don't expect this NJC or the judges to complain. You remember what happened between Justice Ayo Salami and Justice Kasina Alu. You know, these are part of the issues.
Okay, let me take you to Jide again. So, Jide, what your colleague in studio is saying is that, and you, in fairness, said it at the beginning yourself, this is not really a revelation to officers in the temple of justice. Apparently, people in the public might have been shocked, but not really lawyers. Is that what you're saying? And if so, is there, can I take it that we're talking about a minority situation here? It just so happens that Mr. Olumide Akpata, he got a bad batch in terms of when he was on duty. Most other batches are excellent along the lines that you gentlemen are saying we should normally be getting.
You know, for us, even when we were in the university and the law school, it was a great delight reading decisions coming from these highly respected courts. But if you look at the quality of decisions that we have now, some that are even openly controverted, even though when we now decide finally, for example, some cases I may not be comfortable to mention clearly now, that okay, we have come to this conclusion, we will try and rectify it if a similar matter comes up in the future. I think that is a pothole on the pathway of justice. Like I said earlier, justice should not only be done, but clearly seem to have been done. You could have imagined that Solomon erroneously gave the living child to the mother of the dead child when the matter was brought before the court of Solomon. What would have happened to the respect for wisdom that we have today? So the interest we all have is that we should be strengthening our institutions. If you go to Singapore, for example, one of the approaches of Lee Kuan Yew to translate that nation from a third world country to a first world country was to embark on meritocracy. Meritocracy means for you to render services in the public space, for you to occupy an office, you must not just be efficient, but also effective.
Okay,
so
one second, please. One second, please.
And I think we need that more.
Jide, I'm sorry, one second. I beg your pardon. 1 second, please. Because Tunde in Alimosho called in. Good morning, Tunde. I'm going to have to apologize yet again for interrupting you because Tunde, couldn't wait. I was waiting for you to land before putting him on. Couldn't cut in mid-sentence. So if Tunde can get back in. Now, Jide didn't quite...
Let me ask a simple question. Oh. You just bought a 2021 Prado and you have 3 candidates to be your driver. And you are going for one saying he will learn on the job. How safe is your life?
Yeah.
You see, you want to be sure that the one you entrust with your vehicle and your life and everything that has to do with that transportation ministry of your life or business is the one that can be trusted with your wife, with your children, with assignments, to have the right discernment to take right decisions.
So,
and that is what we are saying.
As Libros is saying under his breath here, the Court of Appeal is not a place where you learn on the job. And I understand his meaning. I guess in every occupation you can learn on the job. Yes. But it's not to be as clueless as Mr. Akpata felt that the candidates were. But what I'm wanting reassurance on, maybe you can help me there, and I'm sure Jide will be able to add. What I'm wanting reassurance on is that this is like an exception. The batch that Mr. Akpata got is like an exception. So are we now saying
it is the norm? Just that this
is a problem.
We have failed to talk about
at that appellate level.
Yes, it has been. That is why they can boldly tell you they will learn on the job.
Okay, let me hear from Reverend Dominic then. Let me hear from Reverend Dominic then. Good morning, Reverend.
Yori. Good morning, Barrister. How are you today?
I'm fine, Reverend Dominic.
Yori, I'm surprised that the lawyer over there is not bold to mention this judgment that I'm going to mention now. No, I'm not a lawyer. They're a lawyer, so he has a stake. Let me mention these 2 judgments. One is Ihedioha in Imo State, where the Supreme Court become INEC officials, open an envelope and begin to count the election done maybe a year ago and give us a different result from INEC. That particular issue, even though to a layman, there's no way a Supreme Court should turn itself to INEC officials. And now, number 2, not only that they even allotted votes to the candidates, they made that election to be 2 horse race. Only Hedioha and the present governor now, while over 15 political parties contested that election. So there's nothing to Hedioha and this man. Where has that happened? Number 2, the lawyer was not able to mention about our own governor from Ado State, Ochikano, who is the French senator now, who was sentenced a good judgment from the High Court to Appeal Court, and the Supreme Court said that judgment will not stand because a man was elevated to either Appeal Court or Supreme Court, and there was a waiver from the president of the Appeal Court for him to come back and finish his case. According to their own law, the man said that it's not constitutional. Because it's not constitutional, the man should not do it. According to their own law of justice of administrations, whatever they call it, the man has to come back and finish the case always. And that person will start for 13 years. Supreme Court, in their own wisdom, knowing what Nigeria is, so the man should go home as a thief, not because he was not a thief, but because of the system, the man came back. That judgment is Janka judgment. And it didn't start today, what they're complaining. I'm no more comfortable with our judiciary in Nigeria because I've become politicians themselves.
Okay then, Reverend. Thank you very much for that contribution. Libros, you said that, look, it has always been like this.
Yes.
Because I am looking for hope for the ordinary citizen whose matter needs to go to the next level.
The hope for the ordinary citizen is to join in this voice now to say, since the MBA is saying this, there is a big lacuna, and please, we need to begin to fix it now. It is not that, oh, this is an isolated case. And that's why Reverend Dominic cited the case of the Supreme Court governor in Imo State. And the matter for the first time,
office as a Supreme Court governor.
We all know what we're talking about. For the first time, you find out that a matter that where the Supreme Court had delivered judgment, the parties went back to the Supreme Court to say you have erred, and the decision was not unanimous. A judge amongst the panel said, "Look, we agree. I agree that we have erred, and this judgment should not be allowed to stand." So what it means is you now begin to, where the layman, ordinary man, begin to question the competence, the reasoning of a Supreme Court judge. It means that gradually, if care is not taken, judges are no longer seen as men whose ideas are up in the heavens. If the likes of Taslim Olawale Elias were alive today to read some of this judgment, what would be their impression of,
Exactly.
And then also quickly, Justice Atinuke Ige, after serving the judiciary meritoriously, could not get justice from the same court for the demise of her husband. I think that probably also would have led to her death. So I can give you instances. Look at the case of Yaya Bello, Faleke's case in Kogi. Because people no longer talk about these cases, the Supreme Court should, because we say the law is what the court says it is.
Exactly.
And not the ink on which it is written. And that's why you don't need people who will go learn on the job. You need people with cognate experience of the law and fact who should be able to decipher from the gamut of the judgment of the lower court to say, no, you have either erred or we agree with you.
Okay.
But when you bring in people to go concur at that level, you are reducing your court of appeal to a customary court.
Okay, Jide, I'm coming back to you. The NJC, well, as Libos was saying earlier there, the law is whatever the courts say it is. And I guess in that same way, the candidates that show up for screening will be the candidates that NJC decides to recommend. So the challenge here now is that since both you lawyers are saying that this is it's not a big deal, but I would imagine that most ordinary members of the public are, shocked to hear this. What then is because we have, some of them have been mentioned, we have distinguished legal luminaries who have peopled our appeal courts, and it is from here that you choose for the Supreme Court. So where exactly are we? I'm just looking for someone to say to me, it's more of an aberration. I tried that route, they say stop it. It's not. Help me out a bit here. For the ordinary man who needs to trust and depend upon the law courts and the legal system in our country.
You still have to resort to the temple of justice if it becomes necessary. And that is why the concern is high that we should have people there who will not embark on miscarriage of justice. And don't forget, we are talking of recommendations, and screening is supposed to be thorough. You can imagine that someone is infected with COVID-19 and he's diagnosed for typhoid or diagnosed for ordinary malaria. You know that it's a matter of time. Even when you are treating him for malaria, he may succumb to the deadly hands of COVID-19, and that is why diagnosis is very important. And of course, when you talk about law and justice, you need diligent and thorough diagnosis. Permit me to make reference to a case of the former governor in Oyo State who was to be prosecuted in court, and the judge expressed his pain. That it's not as if this person has not committed this offense, but that there hasn't been a thorough prosecution to make him convict the accused. So you can imagine that. So when you have miscarriage of justice, the negative impact will fall back to the society. It's just in comparison, for instance, with what we have in the country, with the army chiefs and all the big chiefs, service chiefs. You can see banditry growing at alarming rates. But you can imagine that somewhere along the line, we delegate the security of this country, or we outsource it to a country like China, like Japan, like Singapore, like Australia, and they clamp down on insecurity, who do you blame?
Okay,
So
1 second, please. I'm going to need 1 second. I beg your pardon. I'm going to need 1 second because Mazi Okoroafo has come on the line. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, Mr. Good morning, Mr. Jide and Mr. Libros. You see, Mr. Jide, let us look at this issue. Nigeria celebrates money and power, not an intellect or an authority.
True.
Now, look at what the ACJ and MBA are saying and what they are doing now. I think we had what Onoge said last 2 weeks about on the day he was launching his book. Now, you ask yourself, who and who were there? Are they not learned men? Now, appeal court, like the judgment they gave yesterday at the court, what happened? The lawyer said he's going to appeal. Now, what are we expecting? See, appeal court and Supreme Court is what the government, when they want to appoint, they should look for men of prudent integrity that are tested. What I mean by tested, that have the capacity to see that when they give judgment, go to anywhere, consult any book, both international, locally, and community-based, you see that the judgment was correct. But a situation whereby this thing start dancing this way, now, why must we play politics in terms of this type of appointment? It's not. It's just like education you are seeing now. Education will have professors who are good, they just come and write theory, they are good. But when you come in terms of, you ask us, we have different types of molecular professors in Nigeria. What is happening? Some are ready to do the job, but they are not given the opportunity. So that is why the SCJ should make what? They look for MBA experts, the lawyers that are tested to do the job, not to play politics. If you play politics, then the common man has no way to go again. You just come and just say, the kingdom come, oh Lord, just save me. Thank you very much, my brother Liberos and Jide. Have a pleasant day, and Mr. Yuri, happy weekend.
Thank you
for the Sunday.
Thank you very much, Mazi Okorafo. Because so what you gentlemen are implying is that the NJC and all, quite frankly, all these bodies are in our mental space here. And in as long as we are talking about something called the Nigerian factor, why would we take the NJC out and be shocked that the NJC is no different, allegedly, from all these other institutions suffering from the Nigerian factor thing?
While you were talking, I just, a thought came to me, so that for the benefit of our viewers, I'm not saying all judges that have been appointed. There are, in Nigeria, we have some fantastic judges, awesome judges, fantastic. When you read their judgment, you'll be wondering why it makes these good ones with these bad ones. But they are now, with each passing day, they are becoming fewer. They are becoming fewer with what we are having, the benchmark, the procedures for appointing them now. It's no longer as rigorous as it used to be. What you have now in some cases, and that's why Olumide Akpata described it as, an old boys club. It's more like the bearer is from me. Interview and employ. That's what you have now. And so what we are saying is, no, we cannot afford to leave the judiciary, who ordinarily is supposed to be the arbiter between the executive, the legislature, between the common man and government, between government and intergovernment agencies, in the hands of interview and employ. We need people. Our society still have good people. Indeed. We still have good lawyers. Indeed. We need people who are above board, who are at that level, who will be able to sit down.
But in fairness, Mr. Akpata didn't even talk about their morals or anything like that. He took, with taking all of that for granted, he just concentrated on, they just didn't have the depth that he expected.
Exactly.
Mr. Ade in the UK, good morning, sir, and apologies for keeping you waiting.
Don't worry, the king doesn't apologize. Good morning, king of presenter.
Good morning,
congratulations for your vaccine.
Thank you very much.
Taking your vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you.
They refuse me because they say I'm not his age yet.
Vaccine as well.
They refuse me. They say I'm not beyond his age yet.
It's going to be phase 2.
Yes. Coming to the issue on ground.
Yes.
You see, in UK here, when a high court gives judgment, you very, very rare for you to go to an appeal. Very, very rare. This morning, Azda went to the Supreme Court. They gave the judgment live. We were all watching it. And they gave the judgment against Azda for equal pay with women and men. They said Azda should pay equal pay. And that is the end. But in Nigeria, like the last caller said, that money is everything. Before, what we know is that time na money. Now it's judgment na money. Because what is going on now is ridiculous. These are people that can sentence people to death, that can give final judgment that this is the way your life should go. And they are just interviewing them and doing this sort of thing. My brother, do you know that you can even be an member of a town that you don't belong to if you have the money? Because what they say is the final. This is serious, a serious issue. When you go before the court here, once they give judgment in the high court, just go home. Don't need to appeal because you know that you're wasting your money. It's going to cost you a lot of money. But God will save Nigeria. Keep on speaking out, and God will bless my country, Nigeria. Amen. God bless you, King of Presenter.
Thank you very much,
sir. To take their vaccine, please.
Thank you very much.
We will.
Thank you very much. Well, now that it is, as it were, the lawyers say they are not too surprised themselves, but other people, other members of the public now are hearing it. And I imagine there will be a few that are as incredulous as I was, that since they can only come from via the NJC's recommendation, you would have thought that it would be such a serious function that they would have done their own internal stuff before sending them out, as it were. But again, there seems to be a Nigerian wait for all these things, right?
When some of them are even recommending their children, their daughters, their wives, as you know, to join in this fray. So what do you expect? And that's why you find, let me even paint a very disastrous picture. From secondary school, the child did not pass JAMB properly. You give a note, please, he will cope. I just need him out of the house. Let him go. He gets there, he maneuvers his way through, he graduates. You say, please, I don't want him to serve in the north because of insecurity or in the east. His doctor is in Lagos. Let him serve here. And then he finishes. You say, please, Libros, you know my son is now a lawyer. He needs a place to work. Let him come and work in your law firm. Or Attorney General, please, you know I have one boy. Let him come and work in the Ministry of Justice. He gets there. Then they are shortlisting names for judges. You say, oh, please, you know my son has been with you people for 10 years now. Just put his name there. You have been begging your way through for him. He does not understand what it means to work hard. And then someday he finds himself as the Chief Justice of the Federation. Okay. What do you think will be the position of the judiciary under him?
The way you lawyers are speaking now, I'm even afraid to ask what the procedure is for SAN, because if to get into the appellate division, you people are saying what you are saying, God knows what you have to say about that particular process. And I'm bringing this over to you, Jide, because we're going to end on this very, very soon. I was saying I'm even almost afraid now to ask about, okay, how about the MBA elevation, the SAN elevation process? Is it subject to the same kind of challenges that we're talking about here? I see you smiling, Jide.
I think we are discussing that of the justices now, so we may just want to focus on that. And maybe someday a strong issue will proceed. The other one we just asked. But generally
so that's the delicate way you're going to sidestep that one. Okay. Sidestep it. Go ahead.
Let me express what I have noticed. We have the micro sector of the economy. We have the macro. The same we have in politics. For example, if you go to Aso Villa, the quality of security officers you see there are top-class officials. You look at the outlay of the governor, those who follow the ministers. But when it comes to the generality of the people, it's a different ball game entirely. And I think until we go back to the spirit of democracy, of the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, which expects that the quality of life you find in the State House, for instance, will not be so far away from what you find with the generality of the people, then we begin to have justice. So we need to start from there. Like I said now, if you want to engage a pilot, you cannot be sentimental about a pilot. A pilot is flying an aircraft that is carrying lives of men. He's been entrusted to fly them to destination. You see, and the law profession represents justice. And the first anger of God was man, was on the basis of justice. the right thing not being done. Because clearly speaking, in plain terms, justice means doing the right things.
Okay.
And that is why when we want to entrust people with this assignment, we must ensure we do the right thing by engaging those who will do the right thing. That's the concern. That is the concern.
Okay.
So that we can go back to the path of prosperity as a nation.
Thank you very much, Jide. I see that you chose to defer the question of the SAN commentary till another day. I understand that. You chose to be delicately discreet. Thank you very much. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ologun, who joined us on Zoom this morning. Thank you for your time.
God bless Nigeria.
Indeed. Amen. You wanted to speak on, because I was afraid to ask.
It is not different. We shouldn't shy away from that. It is not different from what you have in the judiciary. So, but you know, as lawyers,
you people are worrying me.
Because as lawyers,
I take an SAN as an evolved lawyer. He's so experienced. His colleagues recommend him to be considered for that rank.
What I can tell you now is that the process is not different from what
Apata was talking about in relation to the judges.
Now also, and that's why.
You're saying it could be another old boys club?
Yes, it could be another old boys club.
Just another class of the old boys club.
Let me quickly give you an instance. I attended a seminar at the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, where Andoka was the keynote speaker as Attorney General. And he told us, bewildered gathering, that he went for a matter at the Supreme Court one day, went to see Justice Kassina Alu. And then the man, after talking, the man asked him, you're from my place, are you an SAN? And he said, no. So he opened his drawer, gave him a form, and said, fill it and give me back. And that was his way to becoming SAN. So how is that process different from what the picture that Akpata painted now? Because some of us as lawyers, we also aspire to becoming SAN. So when it comes to this one, we want to,
It's all right. Quench the mic.
It's
all right. Off the mic. Wait now, off the mic. Let's off the mic on this one. I want to thank you most sincerely. Please, off the mic. We'll take a break. So we'll take a break and then we'll come back. He will on the mic again when we come back. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back. And let's go back to the whole matter of fuel again. We will be joined by Peter Esele, former president of TUC. And in studio, we have with us our friend Libros Oshoma. Of course, the backdrop to all of this is that okay, good morning, Peter. Thank you very much for making time for us again. Indeed. Well, quite frankly, the question needs to be asked, is there subsidy or is there not subsidy? The general managing director of NNPC has been saying that everybody can see that there's no provision in the 2021 budget for subsidy. But we're looking at the prices and the fact that we might actually be ending up paying more for fuel. How would you approach the question of whether or not there is fuel subsidy? You can see that Peter's audio, there's an issue there. Can you
hear me?
Okay, Peter, now I can hear you. Could you please start from the top again? We are just hearing you now.
Okay. One thing is clear, there is subsidy. And one of the reasons why I will tell you categorically that there is subsidy is, first of all, NNPC buys in dollars. And you have to sell in naira. And over time, your naira have depreciated. So even if Nigerians are happy that the price of crude is going up, but you are importing petroleum products. When you import in dollars and you now have to sell in naira, so that conversion rate is where the subsidy is. So now the landing cost a while ago was about 187 to 190. So if you are having a landing cost at 190, and then you are selling at 165. The difference between 165 and 190 is the subsidy. Although they don't use the word subsidy now, which I think was very smart to avoid some legal issues So they use what they call price differentials, because if subsidy was not appropriated by the National Assembly, then how come you get the money to pay?
Yeah.
So what you have there is they call it price differential. Irrespective of what it is subsidy.
But NNPC is saying that through its MD that it simply cannot pick up that tab anymore. So it's like, have we come to the crunch now?
Yes, I think they have. What's happening is NNPC is an agent of the government. NNPC is not a government in its own. So for NNPC to be carrying that subsidy, it must get an approval from the Minister of Petroleum. And the Minister of Petroleum is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So NNPC is simply echoing what he has been told. So for me, I don't think there is any ambiguity about that. So what we have now is we're likely going to be paying more effective April.
Okay. Libras, what would be your weighing in on this?
Yes, I have always been a firm believer in these facts. Like Peter Esele has said, that there is indeed subsidy. We shouldn't delude ourselves because you give it another name. That's why NPC also is also complaining that they've consistently been running at a loss. And that's why also independent marketers are not importing. Because if they have to import, and if you have to sell at 165, and then your cost of landing is 190, you're already running at a loss. And so that's why NNPC is the only company that is importing, and then we sell to independent marketer. And then also you have a bridging cost, because the price of tomatoes in Bagada is not the same with the price of tomato in Lekki, not the same with the price of tomato in Koshofe. But when you pay the costs of freighting, the cost of bridging it from Lagos to Meduguri, from Lagos to Abuja, and so that the price will be the same. Even if you don't call it subsidy, to the layman, you are subsidizing the product so that the price will be uniform. And if you allow the forces of market demand and supply to determine, and then you can't now begin to take off that cost to say, rather what you do, you ensure that the facilities are working so that you ease the bridging. Instead of having to truck it, you will probably pipe it, and also in some cases take it through train. But a situation where the government had said, no, there is no subsidy. In one breath, you will hear an NPC say, there is no subsidy, but we can no longer do this. In another breath, you hear government say, we have spent so and so in subsidizing this product. But because it is not appropriated for, and nobody wants to, incur the wrath of the National Assembly, they look for another name for it. What Nigerians should brace up for, really, except we have refineries that are working here, what we should be bracing up for is, give or take, the price of fuel will go up.
Peter, are you on all fours with that? That actually we're just looking down the road to a significant bump in the price of fuel at the pump?
Yes. Yes, that's where we are going. The bump that we're going to have is once you have, we're in a catch-22 position, in the sense that let's assume that the price of crude gets to as high as $90. So if we get to as high as $100, you may be looking at paying 400 naira at the pump station down the road. Now, why do we always, there's always altercation over whether price of petrol, why we should pay higher for that? First, whether we have all the refineries working, the highest you are going to get, you're going to get maximum 10 naira reduction, because the dollar factor is still going to play a role. Then the other aspect that we also need to ask ourselves is, why is everybody up in arms instead of allowing demand and supply to play its role? The simple reason is that there are no facility, there are no aspect of our lives where people feel that government is playing a role where they can look out for themselves. We all end up providing security for ourselves, providing healthcare for ourselves, accommodation for ourselves. So when government is playing less role in the life of its citizens, that is when you see citizens go up in arms. Ordinarily, in other parts of the world, nobody is going to complain about this. They just know that, okay, if the price of crude goes up, you pay higher for gasoline. If the price is lower, you pay lower. And then if there are other aspects of your life where you know government plays a very big role, I've always emphasized on what happens in Nordic countries where workers pay as high as 40-50% of their salary as tax. But they have quality education for their children, they have quality health care. So you don't really bother yourself about where the prices go up or not.
Okay.
But where the areas people really bother themselves about is if the prices go up, you know the cost of transportation is going to go up.
Everything will go
up. The cost of everything is going to increase exponentially. That is where the challenges are. And there are no shock absorbers in the system.
Peter, 1 second, please. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
I have Ada on the phone because Peter was just saying in there that this thing. Okay, good morning, Ada.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to our guests. You see this fuel subsidy thing, or whether you call it price differential, is calling something else. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, what I'm saying here is this: whether you're calling it price differential or subsidy, the common man, what we want is make sure that the price of fuel doesn't go out of hand. And from what is happening now in the international market, because of all these vaccines coming out for COVID, it's going up there, and then we are feeling the brunt here. We are bearing the brunt just because we are not refining enough here crude.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it's ridiculous. Now, and then those artisan refiners in Niger Creek or what, in the Niger Delta, they said they are illegal refiners. Why can't they integrate them than going to destroy whatever they have? Why don't they integrate them? Let them so they can do what they are doing. They have been refining all this one and they have been using it, and nothing has happened to their cars. Then the NNPC now, the one they said they 1.5 billion. When people raise eyebrows, they said it's to rehabilitate and not turn around. Please, I want your guess. Especially Twitter, let's tell us what's the difference between rehabilitate and turn around, or is it a question of semantics?
Okay, Ada. Thank you for calling in, Ada. Actually, the General Managing Director of NNPC, Kiari, has addressed that fully. You might have missed it, and we don't have the time to get into it here. But Liberals, Peter ended up his last segment. Well, what I just took out of it was that this truism that Peter noted, that the ordinary Nigerian, the average Nigerian, sees this fuel subsidy as our own version of social security.
Exactly.
It's the only thing. Yeah. And if you take that out, then quite frankly, we're on our own.
I completely agree with him because he in his last word also, he said there are no safety nets.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the only mono product that runs the entire gamut of the economy. The average baba on the street will need to rely on fuel for his generator.
Yes, everybody.
The pepper grinding woman in the market will need to rely on fuel for his grinding machine. The lawyer who is running a private office will need to rely on fuel to run his generator. And also, driving from my house to this place now, from here I will need to go for another meeting. I am driving. There are no efficient public transport system. So it touches everybody. And then, coupled with
in spite of it touching everybody, where we're at now is that there is no looking back.
That's why coupled with the wastes in the system, in government, in governance, a situation where a man who could barely feed managed to win an election and is driving a 2021 SUV worth 50 million. And then you're now telling the man on the street that we can't afford to continue to subsidize your feeding, while he believes that he is subsidizing your feeding. And that's why you have these differentials until we're able to cut these wastes. When you cut this waste and people see that you're making effort to plow it back into the system, all of us will sit back and say we all need to contribute something. But when some are the ones contributing and others are not contributing, anytime you touch the price, you're going to have this problem. I
want to thank you as I go over to Peter and also ask for his last word on this whole matter. No more safety net use, part of what you said. Is it like hard times ahead? Because it has been pointed out, pointedly, that check the 2021 budget and you will not find anything about subsidy in there. Whether you call it landing cost, whether you call it subsidy, whatever, it looks like hard times are ahead, right? Or how do you see it, Peter? Last word.
Yes, I think hard times are ahead. Very, very tough times are ahead. Not just hard, it's going to be very, very tough times ahead. But what one will expect is that government need to also put on its thinking cap to to make sure that it provides safety net to avoid social upheaval.
I think we're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank you very, very much, Peter, Mr. Peter Esele, former president of the TUC. Thank you for making time for us this morning. And indeed, our great friend Libros as well. We've got to thank you. In fact, you actually you astride both subjects. Thank you very much for indeed being with us this morning. So that's our program. The next time is a Monday morning, God willing, when we'll be together. Over the weekend, do have a great weekend, but remember to keep all the COVID-19 protocols, anti-COVID-19 protocols in place. You might also want to consider getting the vaccine. Consider it. So that's the program for today. We'll see together. We'll see you again on Monday, God willing. I'm Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.